My name is Helen Dutoit. I'm the creative director of the Film and TV Forum. We are now in our 26th year, and this is day 4, Television Day. The session today is called The Collective Brain, the Writer's Room. Part of the reason we did this session is because it's a great mystery to many writers as to how it actually works in there. Kelly will be polling the audience to get a sense of which sort of level you're at and if you've already been working in writing rooms. But one of the things that happened originally when we had the session, we had 2 American writers, one of whom didn't have a valid passport, so was unable to join us today. That was Rick Cleveland, but we're delighted that we have a Canadian writer in his place, who Kelly will introduce shortly. But the interesting thing about that is it will enable us to explore the difference between Canadian and American writing rooms and how that whole process works. So let me tell you a little bit about our moderator today, Kellyanne Benz. Kelly is a Vancouver-based writer-director. She won the Writers Guild of Canada Award for Best Short Film in 2009 for a film entitled Awkward. And I don't know if any of you have seen it, but it really is awkward. But in a wonderful way. She also has written a feature film entitled Celia, which is a period drama set in 1625, which has been optioned by Somapix and Euclid 431 Pictures. She has a comedy feature script that has also been optioned to Random Bench, and her original TV series, Bordello, has just been chosen for the Totally Television program at the National Screen Institute. Congratulations to you for that, Kelly. When she's not writing script, she continues to be the voice for short films as the editor of the Shorts Report, and she also helps program at the Vancouver International Film Festival for international shorts. She's a regular contributor of feature articles to trade magazines like the Canadian Screenwriter and EQ, Actors Equity Magazine, and she is currently blogging for the Vancouver Sun about the Vancouver Film and TV Forum. Please join me in a warm welcome for Kelly Benz and her session.
Thanks, everyone.
This on?
Hi, good morning, and thanks for coming out and joining us. This is one of the treats of the film festivals. We get to actually learn from the people working in the field. And today we have 2 very, very special guests here in Vancouver, and I'd like to introduce them. Beside me, I have Erin Zellman, who is the Emmy and Writers Guild of America nominated writer, who has worked on Law & Order, Criminal Minds, Damages, and most recently, the phenomenal hit AMC's The Killing. And besides Erin is James Phillips, who is one of Canada's most prolific TV writers. We have a real unique opportunity here to learn the difference between American writing rooms and Canadian writing rooms. And James, I can't think of another person who would be best to illustrate that than James. He's run the gambit between writing for dramas to comedies to dramas again. He's the executive story editor of The Guard, as well as I think I have some of these titles wrong, but suffice to say, James has worked on The Guard as a writer, Men with Brooms, and he's currently the consulting producer on the new CBC drama Arctic Air. So if everyone wants to give a warm welcome to James and Erin. So now you know who's up here, so we want to find out who's out here, just so we get a sense of who we're talking to. How many people in the room, a show of hands, are writers? Okay, great. And keep your hands up now. Now, how many people are writers who have worked on or are working on television? How many of you have worked in writers' rooms? Okay, great. Good. Well, great. Thank you. We have a good sense of who's out there now. So we're going to go through just sort of a basic rundown. Just talk to us a little bit, either one of you, about what constitutes a writer's room. Can we just talk just basically, what are we talking about? Are we talking about 20 people? Are we talking about 8 people? Are we talking about 5 people? How does each show work?
How does it work in Canada? Very curious about it.
Really? Okay, well, it does vary. I have been in a writer's room on The Guard. We did the 2nd season of The Guard, for example, season 1B, I guess we'd call it. I think we did 13 episodes. There was 3.5 of us that did that. That's
A
writer
9-year-old boy
producers.
was
That's
one
it.
of the,
Yeah, I would, for example, the 2nd season, I would oversee all the prep. So I'd go to all the props meetings, costume stuff, everything to do with that. The other writer producer would be on set and supervise that, and the showrunner would go to editing and casting, and we would write after hours and on weekends. And we wrote like crazy and didn't have a day off in a few months. So that's 3.5. I'm in a big room now, which is great, and we had an early start. And we're just finishing shooting the second episode today, and we're already working on outlines for 9 and 10, but there was 5 of us, so that was a real luxury. And no, we started early, and we're getting rid of people. So anywhere from, my biggest room's 5, my smallest is 3.
All right, so I've never worked in a staff smaller than 5, but
Yeah.
smaller than probably 8,
Yeah.
7 or 8. So it's probably that's the big difference. There's bigger rooms
Oh,
in-
absolutely. And I assume what we're asked to do, the writers on Canadian shows, even as a story editor, I was going to casting and I was, doing stuff well above my pay scale.
That's great. So tell us
Yeah.
a little bit about the hierarchy of a writing room. Who's at the top, and like work your way down? Like, who's the big boss in the writing room?
Well, there's a ladder of ridiculous sounding titles that don't really mean much, but except that they can correspond to your paycheck, so that's nice. But basically, the way it works in most American TV is there's an executive producer who is either can be the creator of the show, or am I doing
Yeah,
all
you're on.
kinds of?
Oh, you're.
Let me do
yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Can be the creator of the show, can be someone who's hired because they have experience running shows and didn't necessarily create the show, but they would have an executive producer title. Under that, there could be other producers, co-executive producers, even though it sounds like it's the same thing as executive producers, it's sort of below an executive producer, which is what I am now on The Killing. So that's sort of like a number 2 position. And then
Right.
then there's all kinds of supervising producer, consulting producer.
And it's all writers.
They're all
Producers are
writer
all writers,
producers.
yeah.
These
Yeah.
are all. I mean, there is a separate category of producer that just produces.
They're just called producer usually.
And they're just called producer. Yeah.
Or line producer.
Right.
Or executive producer if you bring money onto the show.
But you're not doing the traditional job of a producer. You're not budgeting anything. You're not figuring out financing. You're purely producer on the level of actually producing the show. You're casting. Are you location scouting?
Anything creative.
Anything
Yeah.
creative.
We go along sometimes location scouts. We try not to. I was, I will go to tech surveys. I assume do you go to them?
Yeah,
I try to avoid them when I can. But anything creative.
And so, who assigns? You're in the writing room. Who assigns the jobs? How does the season break out? Say, for example, on The Killing, you guys started with a show that was from Denmark, and they did 6 episodes. Was it, or 10 episodes?
That's right.
Okay.
They did 10 per season. Yeah.
All right. So you have The Killing. They've already done 10 episodes, and then you take it over in America. You Americanize it. How did the assignment of, say, the first season?
Well-
How did that work out?
Yeah, I mean, the way it was actually brought in through a woman named Kristen Campo who worked for a company called Fuse. It was a production company, and Mikkelsen, who was her boss, was a guy who was from Denmark, and he brought a lot of Danish material over, and they would kind of sort through all the stuff over there and see what was interesting and what might appeal to American audiences. And Kristen sort of dug this thing out, and so she kind of brought the thing over, and then her first task was once she got her boss interested, and once there was momentum there, is we need to find a showrunner. We need someone who's going to take this material and adapt the pilot and then run the show, and that was Veena Sood. So she calls CAA and a few other agencies, says, "Give me some names," and they thought a good match would be Veena, and that's how it formed. So then Veena then takes control of the whole thing, and then
Okay.
once she's given that, she becomes the developer and co-producer of the show and executive producer of the show, and that's all her call. She says we have. It was going to be a slightly different format. They had 10 episodes per season. We were going to do 13. That's typical for cable and American TV. So then she hires a staff of writers
Right.
after the pilot gets picked up. We all sit around and try to figure out how those 10 episodes are going to arc out into 13.
And so you all do that together.
Yeah, we
You
all do that
You all
together.
contribute to that. And James, you're doing Arctic Air is a bit of an adaptation from what was a reality show. Is that right?
Yeah, it's inspired by a show called Ice Pilots.
Yeah.
But loosely inspired. It's inspired by a group that flies old DC-3s, these World War II bombers through the north and keeps them together with duct tape and twine and things like that. That's kind of where it ends. Like we don't base it on the characters or anything like that, but just sort of that was the inspiration.
So you had some source material to draw from, and then
Yeah,
when
yeah.
when the team of 3, when your writing room started.
There's 5 in this one. This is a
5
big
now.
one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you all got together, and same with The Killing. You figured out the whole season together.
Roughly.
Yeah.
Yeah, ideas, sort of, this is where we think we want to go with the main characters, general sort of arcs. Here's the first, handful of stories that we're going to do.
And you followed that all very precisely, I'm sure.
Pretty,
To a T. Your first
it
plans
changed.
laid out completely
No.
as you expected.
This is not bad, not bad. I've been on shows where we've worked out everything. I was on a show called Whistler, the second season, which was a really interesting show in many ways. But it was a soap opera, and we worked out everything. And they went and pitched it to CTV, and nothing got by. And we were literally writing the day before prep. I was staying up all night writing a whole episode. Like
Right.
that's how crazy that show got.
Right. And with The Killing, are you like in that kind of time crunch as well? Are you and do you have the
Fortunately, not
luxury
that
of mapping out the whole show and sticking to it?
Yeah, I mean, we do have the luxury. We've been working for about 4 weeks now, just mapping out the second season, just in a sort of. And fortunately, AMC
Yeah.
did like the pitch, so they said, go with God, and
I know
now we're-
you're also very serialized too,
Yes,
so
yes,
you
yes,
have
yes.
to do it. We're not.
Right.
Like we're, it's a little more episodic, light serialization, but we can have a lot more sort of
Yeah, I
just
mean, like
freedom.
with Law and Order, which has no serialization
Yeah.
whatsoever, you could just have 9 writers going off and writing scripts simultaneously, and then just all kind of bring them back together.
Yeah.
Right. So then you've got the season arced out, so you know exactly what's going to happen, give or take. Then the assignments. How does that work? How do you recognize which and who assigns who writes in what episode?
I wrote the second episode because it has a poker subplot, and I know how to play poker, and that was kind of how we did it.
Yeah.
That was it.
So that you only get that one episode because poker is the only thing you know.
That's it. I'm done. No. But yeah, it
How are
was
you going
just-
to find another poker show?
I know, I'm trying.
You're done.
No, but no,
Washed
like,
up.
say there's 4 writers that are getting shows. The showrunner wrote the pilot before we started, and
Yeah.
then, so I got number 2, and a couple other writers got 3 and 4, and then we just sort of figured it out from there, and it's just kind of a little random.
Yeah, I mean, that's typical, it's sort of a default setting is like, you go down by title. So it's like the
Right.
executive producer, will write the first episode, and then, then the next person down will write the second, so on and so on. And the thinking is sort of that, those first episodes sort of are the most influential in guiding what the show is and what it will become. So you want the most experienced writers up writing those.
Right.
But then there's also other philosophies. Like you don't want to, you might want to put a few producers later on so that they're, you don't have this gap where there's very inexperienced writers writing,
Right.
for
Yeah,
them.
we treated the first 3 as kind of like 3 pilots in many ways. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of setup, and as you're coming up with it.
So in the writer's room, who is the most junior person in the writer's room and what's their role?
We have a script coordinator,
Right.
right out of film school, literally right out of film school. We hired on the day he was supposed to graduate.
Right.
And, kind of a junior. That's how I broke in. I was on Cold Squad way back when. I was an intern that did story coordinating. And you just do whatever you can. You're the first there, last to go. Try to speak up a couple times speak up enough so you're noticed, but not so much that you're annoying.
Yeah.
Try to
It's a good rule
contribute.
of thumb, yeah.
And I went in. I got a half script my first year on Cold Squad as an intern.
How did you
If
get a
I-
half script?
They were just nice. They liked me and let me
No, but
co-write.
what does that mean? Like a
I
half
co-wrote
script?
with someone.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, there was no guarantees, and then they fired everybody after that season except for me because I was cheap, and as in like dirt cheap. And the next season I came back with no guarantees, and I got 2.5 scripts. So
Great.
you just work hard.
And Aaron, how did you break in? How did you start at that bottom rung and work up?
I actually started, it was similar, but even lower. I was a PA on a show called Providence, which aired,
Yeah.
God, when was that? I don't know.
100 years ago.
Yeah, mid-90s or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know if you'd call that my start, but that was my first TV experience at all. So I got to see how the TV show worked a little bit, and then through that I made some connections and kind of got an agent, and then I got on Law and Order.
So then you get in, you're in a room, right? Law and Order is a pretty big show to start
Yeah, it's
at.
nice you get an
Yeah.
agent from a
Yeah.
PA job and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
Law and Order.
Yeah, so you're a
Right.
junior in a Law and Order writing room. How big is that writing room?
I think there were 10.
Okay, so
Did
how
you
do
run
you?
2 rooms? Sorry, I'm curious
Yeah,
about this.
go
Did
You
ahead.
know, Law and Order was really anomalous. We didn't have a writer's room at all. I mean, I tell people, like, I was there for 4 years. I think there were 3 meetings of the entire writing staff in that time. And I think I met Dick Wolf 3 times, too.
okay.
So it was very anomalous. We really just worked in pairs. So most of the scripts were written 2 people.
Yeah.
And you would just, you mini two-person rooms, basically. You just go and you break out your stories and then kind of, bounce them off the showrunner.
And I assume you would just break them by the procedural elements, and then they would tell you what mild character stuff to put in?
I mean, there's so little character.
Yeah.
There was so little serialized character stuff. Yeah, whatever. Like for example, like I did a lot of stories for whatever reason that were African American themed. They were like, a community that, for whatever reason, and so there was one of the cops was African American. So like, of course, you're not gonna ignore that fact. You're gonna have some little character stuff there. But so it's whatever was natural to the script. But it was very rare that we'd say like, okay, this is this is the episode where Briscoe's, son-in-law, gets into a DUI or something. Like we didn't really do that stuff. So it was really about pitching the A stories, pitching, we want to do a story about this crime that happened, whatever.
And so were you able to actually take your experience in Law and Order and work your way up within that room, or did you work your way up by moving to a different show? James, I know you sort of worked your way up by moving sort of laterally to a different show and worked your way that way. So Aaron, I'm curious if
Yeah, I was there for 4 years.
Yeah.
So I definitely sort of climbed the ladder there.
Yeah.
Um,
And what does
then-
that mean, climbing the ladder? What if you go from junior? What's the next
It
stage?
means nothing. I mean, you're doing the same job over and over again, but you're getting a title
Different
that's
producer,
bigger.
title.
Yeah.
Were you a junior story editor when you started on that? Or is
I was a staff writer. That
Okay.
staff writer is the
Yeah.
entry position in
okay.
American. So I don't know what it is.
We don't have that really here.
Okay.
And you went from Cold Squad to, what was the next gig that you went to,
What did I
James?
go to? Yeah, I wrote a lot of freelance after
Yeah.
that. Like I wrote everything from Stargate to Ben 10 to
Right.
like every genre. A bunch of shows. I wrote Edgemont for teens, and I wrote all sorts of things.
Yeah.
I was focusing on features. To be honest, I sold optioned a handful of features, and that was really what I was trying to be a movie writer.
Yeah.
And yeah, that didn't
Aren't we
really
all?
pan out. Before I got back in. So yeah, I was mostly just writing, whatever, and then I finally got back on Whistler, and I haven't. I think I've worked pretty much every year.
And on Whistler, you
Since then.
came on Whistler, at what level were you at?
Executive story editor.
And what does that mean? In the room, like where's your hierarchy?
Well, okay, we'd sort of go here, same sort of thing, junior story editor, or intern, or whatever kind of thing, junior story editor, where I moved on my way up to on Cold Squad. Executive story editor, then it's like creative consultant, senior creative consultant, and then producer titles.
God, those are even weirder than our titles.
Yeah, it's kind of like we have too many producers, so we can't call you a producer, but you're doing more than writing.
Right.
So
You're
we're
in
giving you this
between.
title, and then I've been like consulting producer and creative producer on the last couple things.
Right.
That sort of idea.
What does that mean in terms of, as you move up the hierarchy, what does that mean in terms of your input on any said episode? For example, say an episode's been assigned to another writer, a more junior writer, the episode comes in, the script comes in, you take a look at it, what happens next?
It really, like a lot of this stuff, you can't generalize that much. I mean, it really depends on the culture of the show and
Yeah.
how the showrunner does things. I mean, like when I was a staff writer, story editor, that level, just starting out there, I was rewriting a producer script,
Right.
because
I've done that
Right.
too. I did that as an intern. I rewrote
Right.
an executive producer.
And actually, I think there are actual Writers Guild rules against some of
Yeah.
that, but
Yeah.
those things get broken and all that. It really depends. But if you're gonna like say that how is a perfectly run room theoretically, what would that look like? It's like the junior level writers write a script, and then the producers are the ones who do the rewriting, and then finally the executive producer will do the final rewrite.
Right.
But
I think it's who's least busy a lot of times. A lot of shows you have an executive producer or showrunner that rewrites everything and has to put a pass on it. Other shows, on this past show on Arctic Air, the pilot that was written that got the show picked up, ordered off of just a pilot, which doesn't happen very much at all, like off a pilot script, or the whole show. I actually rewrote the showrunner. He gave it to me to oversee prep for 1 and 2 because we're block shooting some of the Yellowknife elements of it, and he actually got me to rewrite him, which just does not happen at all.
Which kind of brings me to what kind of personality works in a writing room? Obviously, you have a lot of shared ideas going on. Okay, let's start with what personalities clash? What can't you do in a writing room that will end your television writing career? What's best not to do?
where do I start? I mean, you just hate
No, that's an example. Cutting someone off.
I think it's like any group dynamic.
Yeah.
There are people who don't play well with others.
It's the obvious, yeah. Negative energy, breaking, just sort of being negative about ideas before you even flesh them out a little bit.
That's a good point. There are people who kind of, you know, one type of personality that can be very annoying in a writer's room is just like that won't work. You know,
Yeah.
no, I don't. That's a bad idea. That's about it. And it's just without offering suggestions. It's like that's like 101, writers room 101. It's like do not shoot down an idea unless you have a suggestion for a better idea.
Right.
It's just not helpful.
The rules
Just-
of improv are yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
it really is.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
improv. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I've been really sort of blessed. I can't think of many people, like there's nobody I've worked with on 5 different shows and 8 seasons of actually staffing shows that I'm not friends with and don't like.
That's Canada.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I do think, yeah.
Which
can-
brings
I
me
think there's an
to-
element of it though.
Well,
Because,
so
yeah,
who do you hate, Aaron?
yeah, I know.
Well, yeah, go on, James.
Nice people get hired here for the most part, I think, and if you play
That's
well.
nice.
Yeah, I know. Because yeah, you know, you spend so much time. I was filming till I got home at 1:30 last night. I was saying, you know, and I've put in 15-hour days all week, and if you don't like someone in the room, you know, it doesn't last very long, and you don't get hired back, and the word gets out. It's such a small community.
It really is, yeah. And Aaron, how is it cutthroat on The Killing? Are you guys like fighting for ideas? Is it?
No, it's a really, and I'm not saying this just because I'm on it right now, but it really is a great run show, and Vina's a very, very, you know, these things all come from the top. I'm sure you have the same experience. I mean, the culture is set by the showrunner, and if they create a kind of competitive environment where, you know, they're kind of sneaking around people's bags, and you know, it just filters down.
Right.
This process has been very transparent, very organized. Everyone sort of knows what's expected of them, and that makes all the difference.
I should say, I think there's a different culture between drama rooms and comedy rooms too. And comedy rooms are exhausting. You're always on. You're always one-upping each other. You're working all day. You're going back at 11 o'clock. We would go and we would punch scripts like every night after we'd finish wrapping. We'd go and just even over beers and stuff. But you're always on. You're always trying to make something funny, or you're always trying to make the person laugh, wasting so much time. And it's a little ruder. It's not competitive.
Really trying to
but
make each other cry.
pretty much.
I'm
Yeah.
serious. Like, what a horrible story from your
Yeah.
childhood can you mine for drama?
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. It's like
That's pretty much
therapy.
it,
Yeah.
Yeah, and whereas at drama rooms, everybody's very courteous, and you know, and it's discussions, and you're talking about your feelings and emotions. And on the comedy rooms, it's like I wrote for CBC for an 8 o'clock show, and we'd spend 20 minutes doing cum jokes. Like well, you can't do anything. We'd spend 90% of our time would be on stuff that could never have
Right.
any chance of making the screen.
Just to get it out.
Just because I was surrounded by all these improv people and stand-ups, and
Right.
you know, that's just what they do.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so it's very different, very, very different. Fun, very cool in their own ways, but I like the drama room better, a little more laid back.
So, you know, being nice isn't always like the best quality. You have to have people in the room who have great ideas. A group of people in the room, everyone's contributing great ideas at a higher level. When do you start to recognize that ideas are going off the, you know, how do you corral those great ideas into exactly the episode you're working on, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's partially the job of the, you know, producers, more experienced people in the room. They're, you know, trying to guide things in a direction that's not totally, you know, that's like getting toward your goal of what you need to do. And because it can happen very easily, you know, people, when you get in a room full of people, it's just, things spin out of control, and, you know, yeah, that's
After
part
the
of
therapy session.
Yeah, exactly. Get really dark in there too. So yeah, you just want, you know, you just kind of always want to think, okay, well, are we heading in a direction that's giving us a story that we can use, you know?
Right. And how much does the network play into the writing room? How much does the networks, like, you get network notes come from
Oh yeah.
directly from the network or through the showrunner?
We go, our showrunner deals with it. We see them, but they're usually focused. And the showrunner does it just to be nice 9 times out of 10 too. Like, just, you know, I'll take the hits, you know, and I think sometimes the writer may sit in on them, but it's normally just the showrunner that gets them and passes along what they want to and ignores what they want to.
Right.
Yeah, I've been pretty fortunate, especially recently, and I assume AMC is probably pretty good at leaving me alone, I would think.
They are.
They
They've been
back
very
off.
easy. Yeah.
Yeah. And how much, I mean, I don't know if, you know, James, your shows are as affected by them, but I know with The Killing, there was quite a bit of, you know, banter on social media and people got really involved. And how much does the outside world's opinion of what's happening in the episodes affect you guys? I mean, maybe not, can you do it, does it affect per episode, or can it affect only seasonally?
Why don't you, you've probably written the whole series, haven't you, before
Before it even
airs?
airs.
The whole season?
Season, yeah.
No, that's not quite true. About half, I'd say.
Okay.
But, yeah. Well, we had a big I don't know how many
Yeah.
people in the room know this, but it was hugely controversial, our
Your ending.
season finale.
Like,
Yeah.
Is that going to
Little.
affect season 2, though?
I mean, there were sort of internal debates about this. We were determined that it wouldn't. I think AMC released a few statements. I got to be careful what I say here.
You're in a safe group, not.
Actually, what I really mean is I have to just remember who said what. But I think basically what happened was AMC had released a few statements that led us to believe they were thinking sort of on different lines that we were thinking, and that we were going to change things based on the reaction, which we didn't want to do. But then we all got on the same page when we started the second season. We didn't change anything based on that controversy, but it was shocking to us because, and it definitely had reverberated, and AMC had concerns because people were so angry at us. We just had no idea, we thought we were like we were going to surprise people, yeah. It's not like you just read some of the reaction. I don't know how many of you know what it was, but anyway, I don't want to give away too much because in case you haven't seen it yet, but basically we just ended the season in a way that many people felt was disappointing. And we felt like, but some of the reaction was so angry. It was as if they were people blaming us of like twirling our mustaches, going like, how do we make the audience angry? Like, how do we really piss them off? How do we make them hate us? Here's a great way. It's
How
like
do we turn them away?
we thought we were surprising,
Yeah.
and being interesting and innovative. But
So this whole, there's been a lot of talk during the forum about, digital projects and stuff that have given audience an opportunity to actually have input into the show. This is a prime example of an audience having input into the show, whether you devised that or not. They clearly had very strong opinions about how you ended your season. So going into the second season, were you even more conscious of pleasing them, or more conscious of like what happened with that?
no, I think we were just conscious of. I mean, a lot of it was just flattering. Like people cared that much, that they were angry.
Did anybody like the ending?
Yeah, I should say the way I'm putting this is like everybody hated it. I don't think that's true. It was just like the most
Vocal.
extreme vocal group of a small portion of the fans.
Right.
But what was the question? Did we change it? I
Did it
forgot.
affect the audiences affect the second season? As you go into the writing room in the second season, you are how far?
No, I think
into-
we just had to say to ourselves, look, all we can do is tell the best stories we think we're telling, and if certain people don't like it, we can't worry about that too much. We really can't let that affect us, our creative process, and that was it. I mean, we had those discussions, but we really decided that was the important thing. We just needed to tell the stories we wanted to tell.
So how much does, and James, I know because every show in Canada is beholden to the CMF funding for funding, and a lot of that is digital aspects and getting the audience to actually participate in the show. How much does the audience's opinions or ideas affect what you guys do?
None at all. I don't know. I don't know how really. I guess if I was on a show that went for a long time and had, I think if I was on a show like Stargate or something like that, had a real, rabid fan
Fandom
base,
yeah.
maybe a bit more, but it's sort of one of those things. Like I don't know how it would affect it in the sense that. You can't really, for legal reasons, listen to their ideas. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
And I think if we were in your situation, we'd be the same thing. We'd sort of be like, well, screw them. We're going to, next season, they didn't like this. Wait till next season, they're really going to hate us, that kind of thing. See, I don't know. Like, I'll be honest, it hasn't really affected us. And I can't think of a Canadian show that it does that much. Not that we don't care, but it's just a little different, up here. If I wrote for Sci-Fi or that sort of thing, I think it would be a different story, to be honest. But
Yeah.
I mean, it is interesting. The internet has definitely changed a lot of things, and I've been on shows where the president of the network is reading the blogs constantly and saying, you know, people really don't like this character. What's going on? And I mean, I was shocked by it. I was
Yeah.
like, really? I mean, that's what you're worried about? Is a lot of, you know, the most, you know, like I said before, the loudest voices are chiming in, and I don't think that's a good representation of your audience as a whole. And I don't think you can constantly second guess what you're doing
No.
just based on a few react. But he was reading them every day and
Yeah.
giving us feedback, and it was very frustrating.
And I should say too, sorry, yeah, it doesn't affect the writing room. I guess I should clarify directly, but it does affect the network and it does affect the producers, I'm sure, who have a lot of influence. So I assume they pay a lot of attention, obviously, and but you know, directly we don't. You know, I try to avoid blogs and different things like that.
Right. So you've got your writing room, you've done your season, and you're looking at the next season. When you're looking to hire and bring a new person into an established writing room, what are you looking for? First of all, why would you be hiring? Is there a reason to hire? And second of all, what are you looking for? What kind of personality and person are you looking to bring into an established writing room?
I'll be honest, I don't. I've never actually had to hire. I could tell you what they would do. Have you hired before?
I've been
we've-
in the process.
Yeah, I guess I've weighed in. I guess that's a fair. But you know, the showrunners and the producer would typically do that. Our rooms are so small up here. It's, you know, and luckily there hasn't been a ton of turnover. So
Yeah.
I've been fortunate that way. So I'm sorry, I don't have a good answer for that.
I think, you know, in my experience, it's, you know, people leave for various reasons. A lot of times it is personality. A lot of times it is, you know, just creative bad match. You know,
Yeah.
they didn't really fit in. You know, you're just looking for, honestly, a lot of it is going to be the people hiring, the showrunner, whoever, they need to feel comfortable with that person. They need to feel comfortable. Obviously, the writing is a given, right? I mean,
Yeah,
they have to
yeah.
they have to read
Samples.
something that they
Yeah.
think is good writing. But then once that's sort of off the table, then it's really about, does this person understand the kind of stories I want to tell? Is this the kind of show I want to do? Is this person, you know, am I going to feel comfortable creatively with this person? I mean, it's a very, as James was saying, it's a really intimate environment. You're with these
Yeah.
people sometimes 12, 14, 16 hours a day. You can't be with someone, you know, that long, that intensely if you don't feel like you can get along.
And sharing all your childhood.
Absolutely.
Nightmares.
Absolutely.
Now, Aaron,
yeah.
I have a question for you though. Do you find that 8 or 10 people, like, it almost feels like if like 5
inevitable.
people's a lot of people to first of all get along. That's probably why you have more turnover too, obviously.
I'm sure.
But how do you get a word in edgewise in many ways? Like, you know, you would think you'd break off into groups, or I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, the real bigger ones, like the 10, that was Law
Yeah.
and Order, where we did break off. We didn't really have a room. I'd say more commonly 7 or 8, but it can be a challenge. And there are, I've been on shows where it's like, let's break off into 2 groups. But the one I'm on now, I mean, there are 8 of us, and it works pretty well. I mean, you know, a lot of that is a credit to the showrunner keeping things balanced and
Yeah.
making sure that people feel comfortable, and you know.
So
Yeah.
it's a finite time. You're working on this for, 3 months, where you basically, you know, this is all you do. Take me through a typical week. How does a week begin? Or can you imagine typical weeks, or is it all a blur?
It varies so much depending on the time as well, because at the beginning, when you're breaking a show, it's kind of a 9 to 5 sort of job, I find. And then, you know, you just get together for a few weeks and, you know, and then break off, usually write your episodes, come back, you know, during pre-production, and then the hours get progressively longer, especially as soon as they start filming, because someone's usually on set. You know, one of the writers is on set a lot of times. The showrunner now has to start looking at edits, and you know, someone else is at casting, and someone's doing this, you know, survey, and someone's at this meeting, kind of thing. And like, I'm literally racing out of here today, and I have to be on set at, you know, 1:30 till midnight tonight, kind of thing. And yeah, the hours go from a 40-hour work week to 80 hours.
So it's not a weekly thing. It's not like a sitcom, obviously, where you know, it's really a mishmash. So this really basic question. Walk me through the breaking of a story. Define what is breaking a story, for starting.
You know, it means a lot of things, but you know, so do you mean a story for like an individual episode, or like an entire
let's take
arc
an
for a
episode.
season?
Yeah, just take an episode and let's break an episode. What does that mean?
Well, so on our show, The Killing, which is totally serialized, which means, it's 13 episodes, but it's one story. It's like watching a miniseries practically. It's all really one continuous thing. We have to very carefully kind of map out where that's all going. And then we have a big board. And on a board it says, there's a column that lists all of our main characters going down. And then across all the episode numbers, 1 through 13. And in, just a few very brief little phrases, like what each box, what happens to that character in that episode. So we know it's basically an endpoint, that this character needs to, have a confrontation with their father in this episode.
like a benchmark that
Confrontation
must
with their
be-
father,
yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
And then, so now you've got a column that's episode 1 or episodes, and you kind of take all of those events of the episode that you kind of know where you want them to happen. And by the way, this is a process. This is a very organized process. I've never worked in a process this organized before.
Right.
So this is like an ideal. I mean,
Right.
often it's just, wow, we don't know, you're throwing stuff at the wall. You don't know what it is exactly. But then we, take those events and then someone's brain kind of tries to synthesize them into a coherent episode of TV, and you kind of pitch that story, and then everybody just tears it apart and pokes at the edges and figures out how to make it better.
And then that is then assigned to a writer or
Yeah.
a writing team, and they go off and do a first draft.
Yeah.
And then it gets polished from there.
I find it varies significantly depending what you're writing. Like a procedural, for example, we usually, at least in my experience, we break a lot by act breaks and turning points.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's probably, is that me now?
Yeah, it is.
Sorry, let me take that off now. And sort of look at here are the main turning points and sort of work backwards and fill it up and twists and turns.
Yeah, act breaks, yeah.
It's really...
We did that in Law and Order, same thing.
Yeah, and that's, I like to work that way personally, and I even do that on character stuff, just, come up with some cool things to build towards. But I've been on other shows where it's like, here's the tease, what scene happens next, and having no idea. And I don't really like that as much personally. I like to sort of look at the broad strokes rather than just doing it. But they both work, and depending on your showrunner, that's how you usually.
I mean, that is
do it.
one amazing thing, I think, in my experience just working on a bunch of different shows, like things that you never ever thought could work. It was just like, well, you can't run a show that way. You can't tell a story that way. You can't do a murder mystery without knowing the ending. That's impossible.
Right.
And then, that was Damages.
Yeah.
So
Right.
people were shocked. People were like, how could you not know where that was going? We're like, well, we kind of knew.
Yeah.
Did you know? Sorry, I'm a Damages nerd. Just I'm cutting you off there. Did you know in season 1 where it was going to end when you did the first one? Like the way they edited it, like they showed scenes from episode 13 in the pilot episode.
Yeah.
Or did you guys just sort of?
People get so angry sometimes when I say this. People are like, how could you not know?
I heard you guys had no idea what the hell was going on.
Well, it's well, I don't know if I go that far.
I heard no idea.
We knew what we wanted.
Yeah.
We knew, basically, we knew what we wanted this dynamic to happen between Patty and Ellen at the end. And we knew that whoever the killer was, it had to reflect that dynamic and it had to, inform that.
Yeah.
Precisely who the
Yeah.
killer was, we did not know until probably episode 10.
'Cause
But we had suspects. We had possibilities. We knew that it could be this person, this person, this
Yeah.
person. We were setting it up all on the way so that we could always, in our heads, we were keeping track of ways that we could justify each suspect
But
as
see,
the killer.
I've read the pilot script, and the tease opens with scenes from actually episode 11 or 12.
Yeah, that
or
was just a
something, yeah.
guess, though. I mean, I wasn't involved with the
Yeah.
pilot, but it was basically, my brother was one of the creators, and he, what they did was they basically said, well, wouldn't it be cool if there was this huge event
Yeah.
happen 6 months later, right? But they
That's
didn't
great.
know
They
what
know what it
that,
was.
they
That's
didn't know
great,
what it
yeah.
meant. I mean, they just said, we'll get to it, we'll write to it. And
That's
that is a
awesome.
process I never
Yeah.
thought could work as well as it did. And, and it's
Well,
weird.
and you have the same with The Killing. You have so many people, you left so many cliffhangers, it could be this many people, and yet throughout the season you had to lay enough groundwork that it's plausible that
The
that
difference
any
is
one
in
of
The
those could
Killing,
happen.
we really know where we're going in a very detailed way. I can say that honestly.
So can you answer the question,
no.
who killed Rosie? So, yeah, go on. So you
That's
knew-
how you get fired from
Yeah.
Writers Room, by the way.
Fired. So then what you're working towards, and you're laying the foundation throughout the season, and those are benchmarks that you plant out throughout each episode.
Yeah. But for the most part, yeah.
It really depends on the amount of serialization, all sorts
Yeah.
of, I think serialization is sort of a bad word on network TV typically. Although,
Oh, it's changing. I think,
yeah, it
a
is
little bit.
changing, I think, and it did sort of go crazy a few years ago with Lost and Desperate Housewives and stuff. Then it came back, I think,
yeah.
and now it's. I think it's kind of a nice balance right now. But yeah, depending on that, you know, we, for example, in our show right now, it's sort of an action adventure show, and our A story is typically kind of a standalone, you know, episodic show, whereas our C story is more of a, you know, a bit of a runner with some light serialization that we have to plan out a little bit. But you know, even during prep, we're still adjusting, and you know, we're shooting episode 3 as of this afternoon, and we put some stuff in yesterday because of what we did in episode 8 and 9. You know, setting up stuff, and you're always just sort of,
Yeah.
you know, tweaking.
I mean, that happens even in serialized procedurals
Yeah.
and stuff a little bit, yeah.
And you were working on a long show like Law and Order, and you had, were you ever in ever in a possibility where you could introduce, and those shows are constantly introducing new characters, as a writer on the show, at what point can you start introducing the suggestion of a long-term new character? Is there a place that's organic, or is it come from the top?
Oh yeah, I mean it depends. I mean sometimes they're you know, a lot of times actors bring you stuff that you just didn't see and didn't see coming. And I mean, you know, you'll hire a bit player or whatever for a day player, and he does an incredible job. I mean, there was one, like I did, it was a Law and Order thing, and there was some part for I can't remember, it was like a forensics expert or something. This was before CSI was like everywhere.
Yeah.
And he was great. We just loved him. So we were like, I want to write more for that guy. And he ended up being on 6 or 7 episodes. And you know, or there were like lawyers on Law and Order that would come back because they were such great characters. We loved them, so we kept writing for them.
Yeah.
You know, again, like James is, it totally depends on the kind of the show you're doing. But yeah, or sometimes someone had an actor friend that they really liked, they wanted to get on the show, or they wanted. They were like, you know, I think this guy would be great as an extended sort of character.
Great.
And then they would tell us to write for him.
So it sounds essentially that there's really not much of a difference between Canadian and U.S. writing rooms. I mean, it sounds pretty
think
much
so,
the
no.
same
Pretty
makeup.
yeah.
Maybe just the titles.
Titles, a little bit. Size is really the
Yeah.
big thing. And, you
Yeah.
know, we do 13 episodes typically. I guess you're rating 13 now.
Well, yeah, I'm writing 13 now. Network TV is 22 or
22, yeah.
24. Yeah.
And I find I did one season of 20 episodes, and that was so exhausting.
It's brutal. I mean, that's
Yeah.
why you need 10 people on the staff.
Uh-huh.
It's just a lot of writing,
Yeah.
a lot of work.
And your brain starts to go after a
does.
while.
Yeah, yeah.
So, which sort of brings me to, you talked a lot about being surprised by some of the things you can get away with in storytelling on television. As a professional television writer, what are some of the unexpected things you've learned about what it is to be a professional TV writer, that you went in with expectations and then you were completely, you learned something completely unexpected? That's nice and vague.
Well, no, on the spot. Let's see.
It's
What?
a- it's
What,
an interesting
as
question.
a young person wanting to break in and be a TV writer, you had all kinds of myths about what it's going
I
to be
didn't.
like.
I had never
Yeah.
taken a film course. I'd never. I got my agent by selling a couple screenplays, feature films, and basically thought I was going to be a hotshot feature film writer here in Canada. And he said, if you want to eat, you have to write TV. I had not watched TV for years, probably. Didn't have cable. So I actually. I was in a writing group, and the Cold Squad script coordinator was in my group, and she had a whole season on VHS of a show. So she gave me I had to write a spec. He told me to write a spec of some show, and I hadn't seen anything for a few years. You know, I've been in university and busy. So I watched all 13 and wrote an episode, and they liked the show. They liked the. So I gave it to my agent, and he just sort of said, "What the hell am I supposed to do with a Cold Squad spec? Where the hell am I supposed to send this to?" So we sent it to Cold Squad,
Right.
and. They loved it and they bought it, and they were going to make it, but then they fired all their actors except for the main actor, and it was based on character, and that's how I got my job. They said, okay, well, sorry, we can't make your show, but do you want to work for $600 a week as a script coordinator?
said, "Hell yes."
Leave your real job. So I did that, but the point being, I went in with no expectations. I didn't know anything about, like, I was helping. They had a coordinator, and I was the intern. I was sort of helping out. I didn't know anything about revisions or. I knew nothing. And it's just been sort of trial by fire a little bit. But So that's not really, it didn't really answer your question
No, it
per
did.
se.
It did. Aaron, did you have any myths about it before you became a professional that have been changed?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I probably had myths about being a comedy writer because I had heard more about that and like the craziness of it and the
Right.
kind of, but then I didn't end up doing that. So, I started as a playwright, and that's sort of what I was interested in. And around the time that I graduated from college and I was thinking about what to do, Sopranos came on the air, and that blew me away. And I thought, I never thought TV could be like this.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I kind of thought, that was really a thing for me that I realized it was an aspirational thing suddenly. I thought, that would be really cool to, work in that kind of environment. Yeah, I don't know.
You
maybe it
rewrite
brings-
a lot more
go on.
than the amount of writing and the amount of work is sort of surprising. How much goes into it? How hard it is
Yeah.
to actually write good TV, and how much, even at this stage, how much first drafts still suck a lot of times. Like how hard it is to do it, even from people that are
Yeah.
way above us. Some of the stuff we read sometimes is like, what the hell? So it doesn't, title doesn't necessarily equate to quality.
Okay.
And even a lot of the stuff I write, I'm just like, it's hard. It's
You're
hard.
like, wow, I'm a professional.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. I thought about this the other day, and maybe this helps answer the question a little bit. One of the myths I probably started with was, that I was going to create so much new material. Like I was like, all I want to do is create pilots and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then I really got into it. I was like, that's pretty hard. That's and I think when you're young, you just think like, got so many ideas and everything's going to. The trouble is, the way I see it, and the reason why a lot of stuff isn't better, maybe in movies and film and all creative things, but especially in TV, is the people who have a lot of experience, who can execute things. They have run out of ideas, and to a certain degree, or a lot of the ideas that they're most intimately connected with have already been played out. They've already written them, and the people who have the new ideas, who are a lot of fresh stuff that hasn't been played out, don't quite know how to execute things yet.
Yeah.
So that's where a lot of mediocrity. That's why there is a lot of mediocrity, and it's always, networks are always trying to pair those two things, right? That like the young creator voice with an experienced showrunner, and kind of to balance those things out. So I guess to answer your question, it's one of the illusions that was shattered was like, I'm going to creating stuff left and right, where you realize how hard it is.
Yeah.
So it's sort of what you were saying. It's you realize the hard parts.
Yeah, it's far more collaborative than I probably would have expected it to be. You have to have literally zero ego, because you're going to be rewritten, you're going to be asked to rewrite people, you're going to do a lot of stuff that you don't agree with. A lot of the notes you're going to be shaking your head going, what the, that kind of thing. And you just sort of have to, accept sometimes that, okay, I know my name is on this and I don't care for this scene or whatever, but that's what it is. And then once you leave the writing room, you have a united front, and you're filming it, and the actor or somebody's director's coming up to you, going, what were you thinking when you wrote this?
That's the worst.
And you got to go, and you got to
You have to
defend this thing
defend it.
that you fought and fought and fought to get rid of.
Yeah, you just want to say like, I don't like it either.
And you can't. Yeah,
But you can't.
You
Yeah, you
can't
can't.
sell
No.
someone out, and
Yeah.
you can't keep blaming the network.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's that. It's sort of accepting that unfortunately that's just how it goes, and be thankful that you're working. Because it can be very frustrating at times. It can
Yeah.
also be really fulfilling. But when it's, I always look back and you always appreciate it a lot more afterwards. And because it's so tiring when you're doing it, and the hours are so long, and you get bitter and you're cold, and standing out there filming, and
Especially up here.
yeah, exactly. You guys in the rain and stuff.
Yeah,
and I just
rain,
got
what
back
is
from
this?
Yellowknife. I was just like, man. But yeah, I know it's a sob story. Poor us, standing by the heaters by craft services,
Having to write for TV.
oh God, so poor me.
Well, what's some of the
The
best?
stress,
Yeah.
though, I think is something that I wouldn't have expected.
Yeah, and the deadlines
level of
sometimes.
stress is.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And
nonstop stress.
we've lost this location. I know you're filming there in 2 hours. This scene doesn't work. Or comedy rooms sitting on set with everybody waiting, going, this joke sucks. Be funny. and or just and riffing or all sorts of stuff. This doesn't work, and having the whole crew sitting there and you sitting on the set with the sides changing it as we speak.
Handwritten.
That kind of thing.
Oh, I've had
this.
actors walk off the set because they're crazy for whatever
Yeah.
reason, and then it's just like, okay, well now the scene that featured that actor is no longer there. I have to rewrite it.
Yeah.
And every minute that goes by, thousands of dollars are being wasted,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like,
I've had that too.
No pressure.
Won't
no
come out of the
pressure.
trailer.
right.
Yeah. Or this person has more lines than me. What's going on? I'm higher on the call sheet.
Yeah.
So
That brings me to advice. What's some of the best advice you've ever received in your career so far? Or alternatively, what's some of the best advice you can give to some of these new writers here?
Keep writing.
yeah, I write. Yeah, I was saying I've optioned this year. I've been working. I've optioned 2 pilots in Canada and 2 pilots in the U.S. this year in 2011 so far, and have a movie as well. And I'm working. When I'm not working, I write and I write and I write and I write pilots. I don't pitch very much. I'm not the best pitcher. I can now, but I'd rather just write the pilot, and especially starting writers, write the pilot, because it's a lot less likely. If you go into a pitch, they're going to attach somebody even with to run it with you, even if you write a pilot. But if you do a pitch, you've got a lot bigger chance of losing control.
Yeah, and if you lose
pushed
that,
aside.
right? Sorry.
Oh yeah, no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if you and if it doesn't sell in a pitch, then you've got nothing to show for it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you don't sell a script, well, you
Yeah.
still got a script. You still got a sample. That's your work. That's your calling card.
Yeah, I've got a show that I wrote, a pilot I wrote, I don't know, 8 years ago now, that everybody loves. It's been optioned by CBC and Global. Never going to get made. It's made me $1 million though, just for being a sample. Just this has got me this job and this job and this job, and rewriting this and that, and it's
You never know where it's going to come
Yeah.
from. Is the thing. You write one thing. I wrote a short play for a bunch of my friends. Just to like mess around and have fun with. That thing has gotten me more work than
Yeah.
probably anything. In television. So it's.
I
you
wrote a
just never
little
know.
family hockey movie set in Saskatchewan about some 12-year-olds hockey team, and that got me work on Stargate because they liked it. They really liked the writing, and that's what got me in the door. So yeah, you never know.
And
But
how much TV are you guys watching? I mean, granted, you've got very busy lives and careers, but how much are you absorbing of what's out there? And for new writers, how much do you recommend?
I've PVR'd every pilot this year, and I've watched 0 so far. But I plan on watching all the pilots, hopefully, and I watch all the stuff that everybody here watches, all the cool writer stuff, the Justified and
Mad Men.
Yeah.
Breaking Bad is so good.
Louis.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff. The same stuff that everybody watches here, and I try to watch. You probably should watch more network stuff too. I should watch more network stuff. I watch A Good Wife, but I don't watch any network.
Yeah, and
1 hours
everything's
very
on
much.
iTunes now. I mean, you really can, and
Yeah.
a lot of the CBC stuff is free online. It streams online, but the American stuff is all on iTunes.
Yeah.
You can download it per episode now.
And watch the Canadian stuff. This is great. This is a great story here or there, but this is the more realistic sort of
This
trajectory
is
here.
where you're going to get your jobs.
Unless you have an American passport, it's tough. I have an American agent now, and I'm signed down there and all that, but it took me a long time, and even then, it's tough. It's hard enough for them to get Americans work. To get a Canadian that they have to work even harder for, especially if you're not living down there, they don't want you. It's the way it is. They really don't want to sign Canadians right now unless you have a pretty massive resume.
You'd have to have had an award-winning series
Yeah.
that you show around in Canada before you'd
It
be
helps.
considered, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to open it up to Q&As pretty soon, so whoever wants to get your hands up and we'll figure out where to go. But Aaron, any thoughts on pieces of advice you wanted to hand out to anyone before we go to
I was
Q&A?
thinking the only other thing that reminded me of, we all do have limited time, and I don't watch enough, and I end up watching only the stuff that I really like, really want to watch. But I think some advice I got early on, which I think was helpful, is like, when you have limited time, and everybody does, read and watch the best stuff. Like I don't think it's helpful to watch stuff you think is crap and say, well, I can do better than that. Because then you get in the habit of writing to that level, and learn from the best is what I think. I think that's the best way.
Okay, so we're going to start with, I've got some hands up already. We're going to start with you right there, and then we're going to go right here into the front, and then we're going to come over here to the beautiful blondes. Okay, go ahead.
It's on. Okay, so questions about writing specs to get work. Do you have any suggestions on, I mean, both of you started procedurals. Does it make sense to start there? It's easier, you don't have to deal with the elements
Yeah.
of the serialization.
Do you have specs anymore? I would write pilots if you're going to write anything. Do you?
I think it's changed. And when I started out, people were writing specs more.
Yeah.
Now, people don't really want to read that as they want to read pilots. They want to read original material much more than
Yeah.
That's-
I have a CSI spec that we've never used. My comedy, I think specs are still
I was just going to say
more
comedy.
viable.
I
Oh, is that
think,
right?
yeah.
Because you can tell
Show
funny, you
character.
can read, like I wrote what's considered possibly the most offensive office spec of all time, apparently. But that's got me work. And before that, I had a Malcolm in the Middle. Before that, I had a Seinfeld. That's how old I am.
I had a Seinfeld.
Did you? Oh, well. Fair
When I
enough.
first-
But yeah, write pilots, because I really do think that it's good to have a spec. And if you would, right now, I would probably spec The Good Wife, would be the show I would spec out of anything. I think that's probably that said, writers also do see, showrunners all watch the same shows, so you can spec, an AMC show because they'll have seen it usually, but the jobs are few and far between. Go write a procedural.
Cool.
If I
You
did
have a
say.
question here in the front.
I'm really curious about the difference between, it seems like you both have some experience in writing for feature film versus television, and also yesterday at the directors forum, they were talking about writing cliffhangers for commercials. Do you guys ever do that, or is that more up to the director?
Writing
Like
for-
cliff-
oh, you
for-
mean like act breaks? Right.
Not for commercials per
Do you
se.
mean for commercial breaks?
Commercial breaks so
To
that
keep
people
them
don't
watching.
change
Yeah.
the channel.
Right.
We certainly write for act break. You try to come up with something exciting, some dun 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 kind of moment, even on character shows.
Yeah, but it is interesting. I mean, we actually were talking about this the other room. It came up. We were talking about how Mad Men just like willfully ignores that
Yeah.
at all. Like they'll have like someone was saying they were talking about one act out of Mad Men was like someone like opens the refrigerator and there's no food. Like that was it was hilarious or whatever it was. And,
Do you guys write act breaks in The Killing? I wouldn't think as much.
Not very hard,
Do you
I
have
mean-
act breaks in your scripts?
yeah, we do because there are
Okay.
commercials,
Yeah.
but they're not hard. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
not like driving towards it. We want to make an act feel like it's a part
Yeah.
of a whole, but we're not like driving to that hard like we did in like Criminal Minds. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
like that.
but-
That had to be a big
We always judge it by that's not exciting enough for an act break.
Yeah.
That's
exactly same
Cool.
thing.
yeah.
got
And
two
tease,
questions.
especially
Yeah,
the end of
you're
the
right there.
tease, is really your big hook too.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what you want.
Cool. Go ahead, right there.
Could you just expand for a minute on when you say writing a pilot? Do you mean draft out a whole Bible? Do you do a long treatment and then some character profiles? Or
I write
are
the
you
whole
talking about-
script.
Okay, and do you do a 2-hour if it's going to be a 1 hour, or you just write a 1 hour pilot?
Just
for
1 hour.
Okay.
If that's your show.
If that's your thing, or half an hour. No, that's not for everybody. I just think when you're starting out, they're not going to believe you can execute your pitch
Right.
unless you execute your pitch by writing it out. Now, I actually wrote I did something a long time ago where I developed a series. I wrote the whole pilot. I worked out all 13 episodes, ABC story, characters, all this. I did like a 30-page pitch document, or Bible with it, and the pilot, optioned it, and they made me write up a one-pager, and that's what they went out with, was the one-pager. And that so, but the pilot is what got the attention in the first place. And as a young writer, a junior writer, I think you have to do that. And that's
Do they still do Bibles? Are Bibles a part of your world at all? Do you create Bibles in American television anymore?
Yeah, I mean, when you go out with this show, I think it's more like after you pitch it and someone in a network is interested, then they want to see where the show's going, and then they ask you to create a Bible often.
Yeah.
That
Does
does-
everyone understand what a Bible is?
That was
yeah.
add?
Okay,
Could you
so a Bible
outline-
well, I'll let you guys, James,
No,
you
you
can
should.
describe what a Bible is.
Yeah, sure. Bible, it just sort of lays out, let's just say if you're coming up with a show like it's 13 episodes, you'll do a quick summary of all the 13 episodes, the character arcs, a page on each of the characters. It's all nonsense. 90% of it never gets made, and unfortunately, a lot of people will fall in love with the ideas and want to do it, and you sort of get locked in a little bit. I would much rather, I like doing like a 5-6 page kind of thing, especially if you're going to pitch too. And I think I should, the pilot's great to have, but I think you can pitch like a 3, 4, 5 pager. If you're going to do it, I think that's the optimum. I don't think development people want to read more than that. And I certainly don't blame them for, wanting to read more than a few pages.
They got a lot to read.
Yeah. So if you are going to just do a pitch doc, just do that. I wouldn't recommend writing a Bible on something.
No, not unless you're going to go. It's like Totally Television to, when I applied to Totally Television, I had to have a Bible. So it just gives you a sense of, if you're going to a point where you're proving to somebody you've got a concept for the entire season, then a Bible's a good tool to have. But it
Yeah.
really is just all bullshit. It's just a pitch document,
Yeah.
really. But I
And-
don't think it's as my Bibles used to be like the thing in America, but they're
Yeah.
just not anymore.
Yeah, I don't think.
You get a
Yeah.
lot of talented prose writers that can write. Is that me again?
No, it's somewhere.
A great Bible, but just can't execute. And I think that's people have just
Yeah.
burned too many times now.
Yeah.
We got some more questions? Yeah, we've got a question right here in the front.
Hi, I hope this question is not as stupid as it sounds.
No stupid questions.
It's a gender question about point of view. So you're in a writer's room. Presumably you need to have a male and female representation. Does it work out that way that you're looking for insight into the point of view of that character from the gender, and that's why you mix them up, or is it completely irrelevant?
I think it's kind of irrelevant, to be honest. That's maybe politically incorrect to say. That said, they always do, I've never been on a show where they haven't said we have to have a female writer. There's always, mixing up, but I've never noticed much, like the females don't write the female parts and the males don't write the male parts. I've never noticed that.
Yeah.
Ever, have you noticed that?
No, I mean, but I do think, like you said, I think having the perspective of both genders in the room is incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think there's any, I don't think anyone can write any character. I
It
think.
depends what writers write to. You write to poker, you write for black people. I mean,
Yeah.
that's, it just
Exactly.
depends what,
Yeah.
That's my
You could
soul.
be, that's who you are
Yeah, that's just
underneath
who I
the
am.
skin.
I can't,
Yeah.
Seriously.
can't control that.
No, you can't. You can't stop being a poker player.
We
So
do, we do once in a while, though, if we do sort of say, is this just some, white male's point of view kind
Yeah.
of thing? Like, we do actually once in a while ask, are we just, it's just the guy thinking here. I can't think of a good example, but we do sometimes sort of ask female a question.
Well, it definitely comes up a lot
but-
on The Killing too, because it's the first writing stuff I've ever been on where it's half and half.
Yeah.
There are 4 right now. 4. I think last year for a while there were 5 women and 3 men. I've never been in that
Right,
situation. It's
right.
usually much more men. So that was interesting. I mean, certainly, like.
how did that change the dynamics? If
Well,
it
like any
did?
group dynamic, it definitely, a lot of talk about eating disorders and. No, I'm kidding. Total
That's what
joke.
gets you fired.
That was a terrible joke. It's what you'd expect. Any group dynamic is just gonna shift, and it's gonna be,
Yeah.
But obviously, our show the protagonist is a female. And,
Yeah, and your showrunners are female, but it is ultimately about the writing. Like, it doesn't matter your gender, your color, your whether you walk or roll or whatever you do. It's all about the writing and what you can bring to the table.
Yeah. I'd like to, I would rather, if I was staffing a show, I'd like to just read blind and go, these are the 5 best scripts that I've read, and rather than being forced to do something. I should also say most of the females that I've worked with are probably, the most foul-mouthed kind
Oh,
of,
yeah. Oh, yeah. That's
like
absolutely
it's,
true.
I was in a comedy room and she was just, oh man, it's like, oh, you're offending me with your, like Kelly, if you guys have seen her short, that's, so
What are
yeah.
you going to do?
Yeah,
Any
yeah.
other questions? Yes, one more.
What's the aha moment? When do you know, what is it when you know that the episode
Any more
that you've
questions?
collectively written or whatever is it's going to work? What is it that you as the writer know that this is going to be a great episode?
I don't know, that's a tough,
That's an interesting.
you never do
Do
know,
you
to be
know?
honest, no. And
You
it
hope.
can really vary depending on who you cast, the director, all sorts of stuff. And the editing and the music makes such a difference. You can save a show with a score. An editor can save a show. You never know.
Are you in
You
the
really
score?
don't.
Are you in the like post-production phase? I mean, beyond the editing, are you in the sound edit? Are you seeing those episodes at that stage?
I usually do sometimes, yeah. I like to go to the mix, and if it's your show, it's kind of cool to go
You'd be
and watch
amazed
it.
how much can be accomplished with sound.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, it
yeah.
really is.
I
mean,
yeah.
It's really
The-
remarkable.
You know, to answer your question in a way, like you can really, these things, you can have a great script, you can have, you know, a great cast, you know, good direct, and then something's just missing. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really crazy how much, or the opposite, like you just, things didn't really come together until the last minute, and then
Yeah.
suddenly you're like, wow, this turned out to a great episode.
Yeah, the best episode that I'm always surprised. Like scripts that I think are average sometimes turn out great, and scripts that I think are home runs
Yeah.
sometimes are just average. And you can just
Yeah.
you never can know.
We have a question up there at the back.
I remember reading once about one of the versions of Star Trek that they somehow a kid from his mom's basement called in and they end up using his idea. When you're in your rooms of like 5 or 10, do you farm out on occasion some outlines, or do you take pitches just to generate new ideas and keep it fresh, or is it locked to that 5 and 10 and everything's in-house?
I think in Canada, and I might be wrong about this, but I think we're supposed to give a freelance episode out.
We have the same rule.
Yeah, we always do. So I think there's a rule that we have to at least have one freelance writer, and we always. I can't remember the last time I've been on a show
Or
that
you
we
pay a
didn't.
penalty, or, yeah.
Yeah. So they do usually, farm out a script. It's usually an established writer who knows the showrunner and has proven themselves. And inevitably, they almost always get completely rewritten, too.
So speaking of which, let's talk about the unions. In order for you to hire, did they have to be a member of the union, or are you?
No.
What's the rule on
I
that?
think you could join the union after. I don't
Yeah,
know how that
okay.
works. I don't think it. Yeah, I don't even know if you have to be in the union. I think you have to pay the union, obviously.
Yeah.
But I don't think you have to be a member of the
They'll
union.
let you know when you pay them.
Because, yeah,
Yeah,
I
you
don't,
just have to
I don't
pay.
think you're allowed to join the union until you actually get a job, too.
Right.
I can't even remember how that
Yeah.
worked.
Okay, so
But-
and if somebody wanted to get a job on a show that you're working on, how do they have to have an agent? What's the best route for them to get into you?
A lot of people don't have agents until they have that job,
Yeah.
you know.
I think there's, real practical advice here. There's a couple things I can pass along. One thing is that in Canada, producers are so accessible here. It's really easy. It's if you have an idea, if you have a pitch, you have a pilot, you can call the development people at all the reputable production companies here, and you can probably get it in without an agent. I sell all my stuff. My agent doesn't sell anything. Literally
But you still
90% of
pay
it.
them?
He finds me work. He gets me read on shows. The shows that are coming up, he gets me read, and he goes over my contracts and usually negotiates another 10% into what they're offering to cover him. So it's kind of a wash.
And having an agent legitimizes you
That's
a
a
little
good
bit,
agent.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, having an
I wish
agent
mine would.
legitimizes you. Yeah, absolutely. It totally legitimizes, especially in the States.
But it doesn't stop you from getting work. I mean, having an agent is something, it's good, but it doesn't stop you.
I think it'd be hard to be staffed without an agent. I do think, unless there's two ways to break in. I would suggest two things. One is to try to intern or coordinate on a show. So work for nothing, work really long hours.
He's not
be there-
kidding. That's
yeah.
actually the
Oh,
best way to
absolutely.
break in.
Yeah, and
It's not a
do
joke.
it. Do it that way and learn your way in. And if they like you, they'll have you back, and they'll almost certainly give you a half script or something the next season, or a script, and that's how you get in. Or if you're going to go anywhere, go to the Film Center, because they hire their own. And I hate to say it, but that's sort of the one place where there's some nepotism essentially, and they
The Canadian Film Center in
Yeah.
Toronto is what he's referring to, the CFC.
That's the one place where they go in and the agents will still kind of meet. Like, I don't want to freak you out. My agent said he averages, I think, about 65 queries a week. This is my Canadian agent. I don't even know. I'm with ICM in the States. I have no idea how many he probably gets in a week. I should ask him.
Maybe not.
Yeah, but they just and he will take on maybe one client a year, and he gets 65 queries a week, and from legitimate former showrunners even sometimes that want to switch and different things. Like I know it's scary, but sell something and you'll draw some attention to yourself.
But it's
Or-
not a career for the weak of heart.
No.
It's not a career for people who don't have some specific tenacity. right? Wouldn't you say, Aaron?
Yeah, I think that's probably the main, most important ingredient. is
Yeah.
you know, to getting a career going and keeping it going.
And when you make some money, save it.
Yeah, that's true too.
I hit big early and optioned a couple features down in the States and thought I was going to be, this is it.
Yeah.
And then I didn't work for a year or two. And, options don't pay anything, as you've already, I'm sure, know. And yeah, so yeah, save your money because it
We have
goes
a question
quick.
right there. Sorry, James, I didn't mean to cut you
Yeah.
off. You go ahead.
Is age an issue breaking into writing for TV?
I don't. Oh God, in Canada, not so much. I believe it is in the States. I think in comedy, I think it
In
is.
comedy, I think
Comedy.
it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. I'm too old to be a comedy writer now. I think they want.
Really?
I'm pushing it. Well, they want these Harvard guys that are 25.
God knows why. Yeah.
And women, they want a lot of, I mean, they really do
Yeah.
want people fresh out of university and
Yeah.
for comedy in the States. And it's a young person's game, I think, comedy, but drama is different, I
I
believe.
think so. I think I'm the second youngest on my staff right now, and I'm sort of tied for second youngest.
Do you get an award?
Yeah, I should. Our showrunner is like in his 50s, and we have someone that he hired who works for us that just won the, I forget, just won an award in the Geminis for like sort of Lifetime Achievement Award. And our showrunner hired someone who ran Flashpoint for a couple of years who had hired him. So like, he's in his late 50s and he's just, sort of works with me on the show. So I think here in Canada, I don't think it is as much.
Aaron, what's this?
Yeah, I would say the same. I mean, dramas, look, it all depends also on the kind of show you're talking
Yeah.
about. And if you're, talking about writing for Dollhouse or something, I don't know, it's one of these like
Yeah.
younger, or a CW show, like, yeah, it's probably going to be a barrier to entry if you're in your 60s. But other shows are just, they're just naturally, I mean, a lot of the stuff, I think that AMC does or whatever, it's just are naturally older writers are going to bring experience that's helpful.
Yeah.
So.
We had a question down here. Do you have a microphone? They want you to have the microphone, so hold on just one second.
Just about women in the writers' room, I would like to know why there are not more of them, and what has been your experience about those you have known or worked with who are no longer in the writers' rooms. I'm interested in the gender part of the writers' room.
Well, his
James,
showrunner
why don't you take this one?
Oh, sure. Yeah, you're already offended. I'll do it now. So I guess to answer your question, I honestly think that there's not as many because I think, and this is kind of maybe what I see in this room doesn't really reflect that. Traditionally, I think it's an occupation that appeals to men at a higher rate. I could be completely wrong about that, but it just feels like, especially in the comedy side, it's mostly, it was always like, I would say that if
I think
you're
he's
reading
talking
specs,
traditionally. I don't think that's
yeah,
true anymore.
I don't think it is as much, but I just always thought it would be like 75% of the samples would be from men and 25 would be from
I mean,
women.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that is my experience too, and I don't know why that is exactly that you see that, but it's not like, I mean, I will just defend sort of my experience and just say it's not like, oh, 9 women applied, 1 man applied. Let's hire that
Yeah.
guy. That's not the way it breaks
It's
out.
almost the opposite, to
it's
be
the
very
opposite.
honest.
It's very much.
It's like we've got to get some females in this room because we've
Yeah.
got guys. That said, I had a comedy in development recently, and we were talking, well, it's still in development, talking about who I wanted to be in my writing room. And I gave them a list, and I gave them 4 females and 1 male. That was what I'd want for my comedy room. And that was just because I just thought they would be great for it. And so I just think it depends. I honestly,
Yeah.
we've got 5 writers on our show right now, and 2 are female and 3 are males. I think
Yeah,
that's
and
right,
I mean,
you know?
just it happens.
Yeah.
I program the international shorts here. The predominant amount of prominent directors are male, and so it's just more male writers, more male, and that's all. It's not a talent.
I do
thing.
think it's
just
changing.
Number. It's
It's my
changing a
sense.
lot.
It is
but
changing, yeah.
Traditionally, it was more a career that men were drawn to. So it's
Yeah.
changing a lot. Yes, there's one question up there. I want to see. That's our last question. Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to make a comment about that. Can you please wait for the mic?
Yeah.
Sorry. As someone who kind of dreams of writing for television, I have to say, I have a kid.
Yeah.
And if I do those hours, I see my kid once a week.
Yeah.
We have
Maybe that's just me.
we have one a writer in our room who has a kid, and part of her deal was that she gets to go home at 6 every night, and that was part of her negotiation.
Yeah.
And you know, I have kids too, but I'm fine with that. I watch set till 11 or 12, and I'm fine with that. I understand. She has a 1.5-year-old too, and that's a different story. And you know, she doesn't travel and doesn't do that, and I think that's fair. She made it very clear.
That's where the agent comes in handy. They can negotiate those
Yeah.
those deals.
And they wanted her, you know,
Yeah.
and she's very talented. So